and scientists across the globe are hard at work to be the first to develop an immunisation that could slow the spread of the deadly disease. So in the United States, human trials have already begun for an experimental coronavirus vaccine, with volunteers receiving their first dose.
For more, we're joined by one of those volunteers, Rebecca Sorrell from Seattle in the US and Director of Infectious Diseases for the Mater Hospital in Brisbane, Dr. Paul Griffin. Thank you for your time, both of you. First of all, to Rebecca, can you tell us, Rebecca, about the trial there?
Yeah, definitely. So I first found out through a letter in the mail that they were seeking people to participate in the study. And then I went through a few rounds of phone screenings and an in-person screening where I had some blood tests and other tests done. And then yesterday I had the first dose of the vaccine injected, and I'll be observed for the next 14 months at different periods to see how it's progressing, if there's any side effects, and if it's working.
So to be very, very clear, you haven't been infected with coronavirus, have you?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not exposed to the live virus at all. It's just the protein, and then they look at the antibodies in your blood to see if it's producing enough that it would be able to actually fight off the virus if I was infected.
And how do you feel today?
I feel great.
Yeah.
Honestly, better than I ever could have expected going in this as an experimental study. I've had no issues at all. I have to take my temperature every day and report any, flu-like symptoms that I'm feeling, and I've felt great.
I mean, this is a world-first human trial. I mean, were you concerned for your health at all?
I think there was a small element of thinking, oh, it's experimental, there's no guarantee that things will go any certain way. But, talking with the doctors and researchers, reading up on the study and its structure, I kind of looked at it as, I'm a healthy individual. There's very little risk to myself. And if it's something I can do to help out others, then it felt like the right thing to do.
I reckon it's going to be really interesting because we know that with this virus, sometimes there aren't symptoms. I mean, do you feel like it's almost had a placebo effect on you, that you're almost indestructible now?
Possibly, I guess. We'll see. I know they will be testing my blood to see what the antibodies look like. So maybe it's just all in my head that I'm feeling great now that I'm vaccinated. Yeah,
it's really interesting. Well, we'll touch base with you again, if you don't mind, in a little bit to see how you're travelling, but appreciate your time. Paul joins us now. Paul, really interesting that they've gone ahead with this trial in Seattle. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I think it's a really big step forward. Obviously, the containment measures and some work on therapy and diagnostics is really important, but with a pandemic of this magnitude, a vaccine is what we're really after. So I think this is a really big step forward. I
mean, and realistically, or even just thinking best case scenario, how far away are we from finding a vaccine?
Yeah, look, I think, as I said, a big step forward. We can't cut corners with vaccine development, though, so we've got to make sure at every step we're confident that it's safe and effective. So that's why volunteers can be enrolled in these trials and know that they're at no risk of being in that. And I just want to reiterate that there's not going to be a live vaccine trial where people are at risk of getting COVID. We do then have more steps as well, though. So this is what we call a phase 1 trial, where we show it's largely safe in healthy volunteers. But then we need to do more work to prove that it's actually effective before we spread it out there more widely. So, this process, while we're all working as hard as we can to do it as quickly as possible, it does take time, unfortunately.
OK, so where are we at here in Australia? Where are you at? And how close are we to some kind of trial here in regards to vaccines?
So I'm part of a large group that's working tirelessly to try and do all these steps as quickly as possible. And, a lot of that work is underway as we speak. And, we would hope to be able to give this to our first healthy human volunteers possibly in around 3 months or so.
Why is it that the States is able to jump ahead like Seattle and we're not able to cut through some of that time?
A slightly different platform. So the vaccine study that's happening over there is one that's been used multiple times. So they're able to utilise some of that previous data to progress a little more quickly than we can. But as I said, we're not too far behind, and we're going really well, I think, to try and get this to happen as quickly as possible.
So we know that, for us, we're coming into our winter months, and that's when this thing's going to peak. There's no way we're going to have a vaccine by then. We were reading today that there are already some antiviral drugs on the market that are quite promising. Do you agree with that? And do you think that's something that could be rolled out sort of this winter?
Yeah, look, I think the work that's planning to be done to further evaluate those antiviral drugs is obviously really promising. And, you know, as I said at the start, we need as many tools as possible to try and combat this. Those drugs are not new and have been used right since the start of this. So we utilised in other countries and, you know, they obviously have an effect and we hope to evaluate that more carefully. But, you know, I don't think it's the answer that we really need. I think for something of this magnitude, it really is a vaccine that's going to be the answer.
A separate individual one. I mean, I noticed too, we were reading this morning, both Ali and I, that they're using some HIV treatment drugs as well. It's a full court press in that regard, but you're saying an individual treatment is probably going to be necessary. Health Minister Greg Hunt told us a short time ago as well, we're getting far more efficient at handling the treatment of people who have this as well. That's a significant development in its own.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're seeing unprecedented development of testing as well as the therapeutics and vaccines. So, you know, we're fortunate to be in an age where we can do these things better and much more quickly than we could previously. And I think we'd be in a much worse position if we didn't have access to all of that technology.
Well, Paul, good luck with the work moving forward. And Rebecca, we hope the rest of the trial goes well. We might check in with you, you know, over the coming weeks and months to see how you're tracking.
Sure, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank